Good morning, spiritual companions. We are reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, continuing the introduction on page 100. Women devotees. With his women devotees, Sri Ramakrishna established a very sweet relationship. He himself embodied the tender traits of a woman. He had dwelt on the highest plane of truth, where there is not even the slightest trace of sex, and his innate purity evoked only the noblest emotions in men and women alike. His women devotees often said, "We seldom looked on Sri Ramakrishna as a member of the male sex. We regarded him as one of us. We never felt any constraint before him. He was our best confidant." They loved him as their child, their friend, and their teacher. In spiritual discipline, he advised them to renounce lust and greed, and especially warned them not to fall into the snares of men. Gopal Ma. Unsurpassed among the women devotees of the Master, in the richness of her devotion and spiritual experiences, was Agoramani Devi, an Orthodox Brahmin woman. Widowed at an early age, she had dedicated herself completely to spiritual pursuits. Gopala, the baby Krishna, was her ideal deity, whom she worshipped following the Vatsalya attitude of the Vaishnava religion, regarding him as her own child. Through him, she satisfied her unassuaged maternal love, cooking for him, feeding him, bathing him, and putting him to bed. This sweet intimacy with Gopala won her the sobriquet of Gopal Ma, or Gopala's mother. For 40 years she had lived on the bank of the Ganges in a small, bare room, her only companions being a threadbare copy of the Ramayana and a bag containing her rosary. At the age of 60, in 1884, she visited Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineswar. During the second visit, as soon as the Master saw her, he said, "Oh, you have come. Give me something to eat." With great hesitation, she gave him some ordinary sweets that she had purchased for him on the way. The Master ate them with relish and asked her to bring him some simple curries or sweets prepared by her own hands. Gopal Ma thought he was a queer kind of monk, for instead of talking of God, he only asked for food. She did not want to visit him again, but an irresistible attraction brought her back to the temple garden. She carried with her some simple curries that she had cooked herself. Soon after, one early morning, Gopal Ma was meditating when she had a remarkable experience. Gopala, her ideal deity, appeared before her, sat on her lap, and presently began to move all about the room. Every now and then she found Gopala assuming Sri Ramakrishna's form. At daybreak she hastened to Dakshineswar, still carrying the divine child in her arms. She found the Master absorbed in deep samadhi, and Gopala frequently entering his body and coming out of it. She was steeped in bliss and returned to her hut in a dazed condition. Gopal Ma spent about 2 months in uninterrupted communion with God, the baby Gopala never leaving her for a moment. Then the intensity of her vision was lessened. Had it not been, her body would have perished. The Master spoke highly of her exalted spiritual condition and said that such vision of God was a rare thing for ordinary mortals. The fun-loving Master one day confronted the critical Narendranath with this simple-minded woman. No two could have presented a more striking contrast. The Master knew of Narendra's lofty contempt for all visions. He asked the old lady to narrate her experiences to Narendra. With great hesitation, she told him her story. Now and then she interrupted her maternal chatter to ask Narendra, "My son, I am a poor ignorant woman. I don't understand anything. You are so learned. Now tell me if these visions of Gopala are true." As Narendra listened to the story, he was profoundly moved. He said, "Yes, mother, they are quite true." Behind his cynical exterior, Narendra too possessed a heart full of love and tenderness. The March of Events. In 1881, Hriday was dismissed from service in the Kali temple for an act of indiscretion and was ordered by the authorities never again to enter the temple garden. In a way, the hand of the Divine Mother may be seen even in this. Having taken care of Sri Ramakrishna during the stormy days of his spiritual discipline, Hriday had come naturally to consider himself the sole guardian of his uncle. None could approach the master without his knowledge, and he would be extremely jealous if Sri Ramakrishna paid attention to anyone else. Hriday's removal made it possible for the real devotees of the master to approach him freely and live with him in the temple garden. During the weekends, the householders, enjoying a respite from their office duties, visited the master. The meetings on Sunday afternoons were of the nature of little festivals. Refreshments were often served. Professional musicians now and then sang devotional songs. The master and the devotees sang and danced. Sri Ramakrishna frequently going into ecstatic moods. The happy memory of such a Sunday would linger long in the minds of the devotees. Those whom the master wanted for special instruction, he would ask to visit him on Tuesdays and Saturdays. These days were particularly auspicious for the worship of Kali. The young disciples destined to be monks, Sri Ramakrishna invited on weekdays when the householders were not present. The training of the householders and of the future monks had to proceed along entirely different lines. Since M generally visited the master on weekends, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna does not contain much mention of the future monastic disciples. Finally, there was a handful of fortunate disciples, householders as well as youngsters, who were privileged to spend nights with the master in his room. They would see him get up early in the morning and walk up and down the room, singing of God's glories in his sweet voice and tenderly communing with the mother. Injury to the master's arm. One day in January 1884, the master was going toward the pine grove when he went into a trance. He was alone. There was no one to support or guide his footsteps. He fell to the ground and dislocated a bone in his left arm. This accident had a significant influence on his mind, the natural inclination of which was to soar above the consciousness of the body. The acute pain in the arm forced his mind to dwell on the body and on the world outside. But he saw, even in this, a divine purpose, for, with his mind compelled to dwell on the physical plane, he realized more than ever that he was an instrument in the hand of the Divine Mother, who had a mission to fulfill through his human body and mind. He also distinctly found that in the phenomenal world, God manifests himself in an inscrutable way through diverse human beings, both good and evil. Thus he would speak of God in the guise of the wicked, God in the guise of the pious, God in the guise of the hypocrite, God in the guise of the lewd. He began to take a special delight in watching the divine play in the relative world. Sometimes the sweet human relationship with God would appear to him more appealing than the all-effacing knowledge of Brahman. Many times he would pray, "Mother, don't make me unconscious through the knowledge of Brahman. Don't give me Brahmanyana, Mother. Am I not your child and naturally timid? I must have my mother. A million salutations to the knowledge of Brahman. Give it to those who want it." Again he prayed, "O Mother, let me remain in contact with men. Don't make me a dried-up ascetic. I want to enjoy your sport in the world." Often he said that, though he had seen God manifested through many different forms, he liked best his manifestation as man. He was able to taste this very rich experience and enjoy the love of God and the company of his devotees, because his mind, on account of the injury to his arm, was forced to come down to the consciousness of the body. Again, he would make fun of people who proclaimed him as a divine incarnation by pointing to his broken arm. He would say, "Have you ever heard of God's breaking his arm?" It took about 5 months for the arm to heal. Beginning of his illness. In April 1885, it was noticed that Sri Ramakrishna had an inflammation of the throat. Prolonged conversation or absorption in samadhi, making the blood flow into the throat, would aggravate the pain. Yet, when the annual Vaishnava festival was celebrated at Panihati, Sri Ramakrishna attended it against doctor's advice. With a group of disciples, he spent himself in music, dance, and ecstasy. The illness took a turn for the worse and was diagnosed as clergyman's sore throat. The patient was cautioned against conversation and ecstasies. Though he followed the physician's directions regarding medicine and diet, he could neither control his trances nor withhold from seekers the solace of his advice. Sometimes, like a sulky child, he would complain to the mother about the crowds, who gave him no rest day or night. He was overheard to say to her, "Why do you bring here all these worthless people, who were like milk diluted with 5 times its quantity in water? My eyes are almost blinded with blowing the fire to dry up the water. My health is gone. It is beyond my strength. Do it yourself if you want it done." This, pointing to his own body, is but a perforated drum. If you go on beating it day in and day out, how long will it last? But his large heart never turned anyone away. He said, "Let me be condemned to be born over and over again, even in the form of a dog, if I can be help to a single soul." And he bore the pain, singing cheerfully, "Let the body and the illness understand each other, but do you, O mind, dwell forever in God's bliss." One night he had a hemorrhage of the throat. The doctor now diagnosed the illness as cancer. Narendra was the first to break his heart-rending news to the disciples. Within 3 days, the master was removed to Calcutta for better treatment. At Balaram's house, he remained a week until a suitable place could be found at Sayampur in the northern section of Calcutta. During this week, he dedicated himself practically without respite to the instruction of those beloved devotees who had been unable to visit him oftener at Dakshineswar. Discourses incessantly flowed from his tongue, and he often went into samadhi. Dr. Mahendra Sarkar, the celebrated homeopath of Calcutta, was invited to undertake his treatment. End of section. End of today's reading.